Hello and thank you for joining me. What this video is right now is a video that's actually meant to preface another video that's coming in like a couple minutes. And the reason I'm doing this is because I want to give context to what that video actually is, okay? So it's a video about mental illness and the victim mentality around it and how that impacted my life, which I think is really important. It's like one of the key distinctions in my life is understanding that relationship. And this video, whenever Mental Health Awareness Month of 2020 was, that's when I made this video. And it was not a video that I made with the intention of sharing with other people. It was a video that I made for myself to work through some of my thoughts and ideas and feelings about a particular topic, which is mental health and mental health awareness and what it means to, have awareness around your own mental health. And it was practice for me being on camera in front of a whiteboard, whatever, like getting used to doing what it is that I do best now. I wasn't always comfortable on camera, and you will see that in the video that is coming up in like 20 or 30 seconds. But I wanted to give this preface to it so that when you watch this video, you understand that was coming from a place of genuine self-discovery. And it's something that I could, try to script and re-deliver and duplicate. And I've thought about doing it, but honestly, the authenticity that comes through the original version of that video, slightly edited for time and coherence because I stumbled all over myself, like I'm sure you'll see. But that is the authenticity of going through something that you're not good at and you don't know how to do. And if you practice and you do it over and over and over again, you get more comfortable doing it. And so that was one of the first times that I recorded myself on camera actually presenting something that I'm passionate about. So I want to share that with you now because I've been encouraged by so many people to share this video. So that's what I'm doing. So without further ado, here's the video about mental health, mental illness, and the victim mentality, and ultimately how I broke out of it. So anyway, enjoy. We don't need a fucking month to talk about mental health awareness. We're gonna dedicate this month to talking about mental health awareness. Fuck that. No, mental health is a discussion that shouldn't be limited to 1 month. I think that's the biggest frustration. It's what? Great. So we have 1 month to talk about mental health, and then after that month is over, we can't talk about mental health anymore. No, I know it's to bring awareness, but what does that actually mean? What are you bringing awareness to? The stigma of living with mental health? Bringing awareness to that? Okay, we all know that there's a stigma. Everybody's well aware that there's a stigma attached to mental health, and so what? So this is the month that we're going to say, end the stigma. End the stigma. Yay. And then what? This is Mental Health Awareness Month and we're going to bring attention to mental health. And it's yeah, cool, but why don't we just do that all the time? Not just during May, but all of the fucking time. Not just for 1 month out of the year. What the fuck? And I understand the message behind this is, it's if you don't bring awareness to it, there's no awareness. But that's the problem. If you want to end the stigma, you can't just talk about it 1 month out of the year. You can't just say it's Mental Health Awareness Month. Let me tell my story. Let me tell my story. I can't spell, apparently I'm dyslexic. Let me tell my story. And do my part to bring awareness to mental health. It's yeah, mental health is a thing. We all get it now. So let's take it a step further. It's right now, it is not enough to just acknowledge the fact that mental health exists, okay? That is not enough. You're walking down the street and you see someone just standing in the corner and they're talking to themselves and hey man, they're talking to themselves. They're bonkers, right? is what you say. It's like, man, that guy's crazy. Well, I'm glad I'm not him. Where's Mental Health Awareness Month then, right? What are you doing about it? What are you doing about it? What are you doing? Look, bringing awareness to mental health and the stigma and ending it it's not enough anymore. Because what are we doing? We're talking about it. And we're talking, 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 but what are we doing about it? Because talking only takes you so far. And sharing your stories helps people feel not so alone. And that's really important, don't get me wrong, but like, how does talking change anything? Well, it doesn't. Action does. Stop like sharing your stories and hoping that somebody's gonna pay attention and make things better. Yeah, like I know that sounds so invalidating. I get it, because I went through that for 15 years. It's like, and it's that victim mindset, man. And it's like you get tied to that person that has that pain. Let's explore this. I have a mental illness. That is a subconscious victim mentality that will destroy you if you don't address it. This is what happens. This is what happened to me. I have a mental illness. It opened a whole bunch of doors for a whole lot of bad stuff. Because as I was getting treatment, this was when I was a teenager. I was in my mid-teens. And I was getting treatment for mental illness. And then people, there's one thing that people started making excuses for some of the stuff that I did, some of the ways that I behaved, some of my, choices and my bad judgment. It was like, you're going through a hard time, it's okay. You have a mental illness. You have a mental illness, so it's okay. We're gonna give you a pass on this one. We're gonna let it slide. We're gonna make an exception because you have a mental illness. And man, when I started to realize that having a mental illness consistently got me out of stuff, that mental illness was a scapegoat for a lot of things, I threw caution to the wind. I did not give a fuck. Because if shit got really, really bad, well, I have a mental illness. Hall pass. And man, and it hurts me to say that. Because the thing is at the time, I didn't know that that's what I was doing. It was a subconscious victim mentality. It was a result of a subconscious victim mentality. It was so deeply ingrained in me that I have this mental illness and it's going to impact every single part of my life for the rest of my life, and I have no control over it, and it has control over me, and I'm the victim of my mental illness. That was what was ingrained in me. I am a victim of my mental illness, and that victim mentality destroyed me, because using the mental illness as a scapegoat unconsciously for the longest time. Look, it was only after I started gaining mental clarity and I started, recovering and healing from all of it, that I was able to put some of this stuff in perspective and be like, oh, that's what I was doing? That's not cool, man. That's not cool. And on the one hand, it hurts me, because how could I possibly have been like that? I see it so clearly now. But on the other hand, it was I had a mental illness and I didn't know any better. I just didn't know any better. At the time, I was so oblivious to what was going on because I was such a victim of my mental illness, and it was the thing that was running my life, not me. And in the way that played out in so many different, like it being a scapegoat. Sorry, I have a mental illness. It's like, oh, okay, well, you're going through a hard time, so we'll let it slide. We'll make an exception. What I found out is that if you have a mental illness, there's a higher chance that people will make exceptions for you than they would if you don't have a mental illness. That it's just a fact. It's just a fact based on years of experience. What I found out is that if you have a mental illness, people are significantly more likely to make exceptions for you than if you didn't have a mental illness. And I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm not saying that it's not okay. I'm not saying it's not okay to make exceptions and bend the rules for people with a mental illness. That's not what I'm saying at all. That's not the point. The point is the effect that had on me and the way that I carried myself as I went through life. Because if I know that someone will, make an excuse, if I know that a rule can be bent, and I'm not in control of what's going on, then I always, in the back of my mind, in the back of my head, when I'm not conscious of it, I always knew that there was going to be a way out, that I could use the mental illness. I have a mental illness. I can use that as a scapegoat. It was always in the back of my mind. I know that now. I didn't know that then. It took me, years of perspective and, hindsight and therapy and a lot of other shit to realize that that's what was happening. And that was holding me back. This is me this is my timeline. And I'm traveling through life. And this is where I start, right? It's my starting point on my timeline. This is me with a mental illness. And I start going and I travel and I get to a point right here. Something bad happens, something unfortunate happens, I slip up or whatever. And I say, oh, I have a mental illness. Right. And then what happens as a result of that, I can't be like, oh, I have a mental illness and then keep going. That's not how it works. I have to reset back to this point in my personal growth, right? Because that's what it was. Is you hit a plateau. I can't keep going forward. I can't keep growing past that, and I can't keep developing past that, and I can't keep healing past that point because something happens. I say, oh, I have a mental illness, and that's the farthest that I can go. That's the farthest that I can develop, is to the point where something happens that's outside of my control, and I lose control, and bad things happen. I say, oh, I have a mental illness. It's not my fault. I'm the victim of it, and then I'm going to reset back to where I started, and I'm going to try again. And so I go, and I get maybe a little bit further, and it's like, oh, I have a mental illness. Let me reset back to where I started, right? And then maybe I get a little bit further, and then, oh, I have a mental illness. Let me reset. And then all of this time that I spent traveling, all of that, I could have, if I would have stopped letting this happen, if I would have stopped letting that be an excuse, if I would have started growing past that point, then all of this would have just been like massive growth in the forward direction. But the reason that never happened is because I kept that oh, I have a mental illness, was holding me back. That was the thing that was in control of my life. That was the thing that was dictating my actions and my thoughts. And that was the thing that was running the show because I'm a victim. I'm a victim of my mental illness. I can't help it. I don't have control over it. And then I was like, fuck this. I'm tired of this. I'm tired of doing this fucking dance. I'm tired of doing that. You get to a certain point, and then you reset and go back, and then you get somewhat further, and then something happens, and you reset, and you get somewhat further, and you reset. And as long as just having that be like, this is the thing that is holding me back from doing the things that I want to do. My mental illness is the thing that is holding me back from doing the things that I actually want to do. And I got fucking tired of it. I got so tired of it. I was like, I can't do this anymore. I'm sick of being miserable. And everything all the approaches that everybody has tried to tell me to do, this medication and that medication and this therapy and that therapy and all of these things, and I'm like doing it, I'm doing like, yep, up this dose, decrease that dose, let's swap out this medication for a different one, and doing that for 10, 15 years, and I still was a victim of my mental illness. And it was destroying my life. And I couldn't fucking take it anymore. I couldn't. So I decided to stop being a victim. I decided to stop being a victim of my mental illness. I decided to leave this dance forward and backward and forward and backward. I decided to take this moment. Circle this dance, this blue circle was that dance that I was doing, all right? I got tired of it, sick of it, I'm done with it. I'm tired of being the victim of my mental illness. And then I took that circle and I said, that is the time in my life when I was completely out of control and I was a victim of my mental illness. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take everything that happened inside that circle. I'm going to take all of it and I'm going to throw it away. I'm going to throw it away. I'm going to get rid of it. It's gone. And I'm going to change literally everything about that part of my life. And I'm going to redefine myself. I'm going to redefine myself. Because that version right there, for 10 or 15 years, was not working. None of it was. Some of it had its, there were some, shining good points, but overall, it was just one big cycle of bad, unfulfilling, and I was a victim. I was a victim for that whole part of my life. And I decided I'm not going to be a victim anymore. And how do I not be a victim? I identify everything, literally everything about that time in my life when I was a victim, and I'm going to change it. I'm going to quit drinking alcohol. I'm going to quit smoking. I'm going to start exercising. I'm going to stop consuming sugar at massive levels. Like, those are surface things. And then I was like, I'm going to change the way that I perceive the world around me. I'm going to change the way that I process information that's coming at me. I'm going to change the way that I interact with other people. I'm going to change the way that I think about the things that other people say. I'm going to change the way that I say things to other people. I'm going to change the way that I walk. I'm going to change the way that I talk. I'm going to change the way that I do my hair. I'm going to change the clothes that I wear. I'm going to change literally everything. Change literally everything about the part of me that felt like I was a victim. Because then when you change all of that, when you change everything that made you a victim, then you're not a victim anymore. And when you break that mold that you like found yourself in, that you're a victim, when you break the mold of you break your own mold of your victim mentality, then you all of a sudden have this whole new expanse of life to explore. Because you're like, okay, now that I'm out of that, now that I left that version of me, that victim version of me, now that that is gone, now that's in the trash, it's in the past, it doesn't matter. All of that's gone. Now I can start to become the version of me that I want. I can become the best version of me that I want to be. I can become the ideal version of myself, the ideal version of yourself. The ideal version of yourself, of self. This is important. Why is it important? Because everything is important. Become the ideal version of yourself. Because this victim mentality, that's not the best version of yourself. If you have a victim mentality, you're not yourself. This is what you have to understand, is that when you're stuck in what you have to understand is when you're stuck in a victim mentality, you're not yourself. You're another person. That's when you're in the victim mentality, the other person that is not yourself has taken over your life, and you're taking the back seat to this victim mentality persona. And it gets imprinted into you biologically, like it has a whole biochemistry profile, you know. And when you change literally everything about that, you're not the same person as you were when you had that I'm a victim mentality. And when you get out of that place, like when you stop thinking I'm a victim, stop thinking about I'm a victim, and you change all of that stuff, then that goes away, and this goes away, and everything goes away. And after you've redefined yourself, and all of this goes away, you have a blank slate. And when you have a blank slate, what do? Who do I want to be? Who do you want to be? Because when you break out of that victim mentality and you wipe that slate clean, you can be anybody that you want to be. Because you can be yourself. You can identify, like, what's the ideal version of you? Who is your ideal self? And become that person. I know that part sounds, it's like, yeah, easier said than done. I just become my ideal self. That's a whole process. But that's the glory, is that when you break that victim mindset and you clean that slate, and all of a sudden you have the freedom. You have the freedom to be anybody that you want to be. You have the freedom to do anything that you want to do. And it's not easy. It's easy for me to talk about because I've already done it. But man, I cried so much. I went through so much inner pain. I opened up so many wounds, and it hurt a lot to break out of that victim mentality. But man, once I did, a whole new world. A whole new world. So who do you want to be? Want to be a victim? Or do you want to be yourself? The choice is yours.